Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Evey Andersen, a board-certified family nurse practitioner, certified sports nutritionist, homeopath, anti-aging expert, and overall functional and integrative medicine powerhouse. Through her clinic, Green Medicine of Wisconsin, which is based out of Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Evey helps patients navigate complex chronic conditions by blending functional medicine, nutrition, circadian biology, and homeopathy. Her clinic has a special interest in Lyme disease, or Lyme complex, as she calls it, and since this is a hot topic during the springtime in Wisconsin, we're excited to fill 2 of our 4 episodes with some incredibly empowering discussions around Lyme symptoms, treatment, and prevention, all through a functional medicine lens. Our final 2 episodes together are filled with topics that Evey has extensive professional and personal experience with, including circadian biology and how different types of light, like sunlight, red or blue light, impacts us and our kids, as well as how homeopathy can be a natural way to support first aid needs and short or long-term disease. In her personal life, Evey enjoys yoga, spending time in the sauna, and enjoying nature with her husband, daughter, and their 2 sweet dogs. We can't wait for you to meet Evey, so let's jump in.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. We have Evey back here with us today. We're going to be talking all about the circadian rhythms biology, and I'm so excited about this because this is something that our family has been really getting into, and some of the things that we're going to be talking about today we've been doing, and we can see a big difference for it in our lives too. So first of all, what is circadian biology, and why should we care? What difference does it make to us?
So the circadian biology idea is that our bodies are truly designed to follow this kind of or be matched with the outside light and dark pattern of our environment. We are really designed to follow this rhythm of the sun because there are receptors on your skin and your eyes that cue different hormones in your body to function optimally. So it sets this internal clock. Every cell in your body has what they consider a clock gene that works better at certain times of day. And that signal you give it from a light perspective is what's going to be that anchor for that. It's when you get this good pattern established, your body really thrives. And unfortunately, when you ignore that, you do get these chronic things that can pop up, and they're very insidious over time. When I think about my patient population generally, I got down this deep, dark rabbit hole with this probably starting last summer. I had a patient bring this idea of leptin to me. And I was like, well, yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know if you've ever heard of that. But I'm like, I don't really know what else we can do for it other than like manage stress and all like the seemingly obvious things. And she's like, okay, well, I think I have a resistance. I'm like, all right, so we checked her labs and sure enough, she does. And so now here I am, like, what do I do with that? So it has pushed me down this intense research path where I just can't come back from, which is awesome because I think when we look at how collectively challenged health-wise our world is at this moment, I think a lot of it has to do with our abuse of technology or the fact that we can have it as bright as we want at any time of day. And we're really not following that circadian rhythm and the light signals that you get from the outside, which is truly what's setting everything else up in your system, which is fascinating to me. When, especially, I guess, dealing with my Lyme patients, I think I spoke to this before, but nutrition used to be the hill I would die on. Like, yes, it's got to be nutrition. If that's not on point, you're falling apart. And now I've certainly kind of changed my tune on that. And I think that this light story and matching your system with the signals from the surrounding environment is the most, I don't even think it's one thing. I think it is the most important. And I will say that having thought opposite for a very, very long time. I am a reformed night shifter. I worked at night for 10 years. I was absolutely a night owl growing up my entire life. And I realized looking at some of the data, like how that was probably causing some disruption long term, which is very just fascinating. We live in this world where if we get into alignment with this rhythm, things just work better. Our sleep improves, metabolism stabilizes, your mood is better. If you think about, like, especially being sleep deprived as a parent, like how short you can be, and you're like, this is not me. But that is, I think, what unfortunately a lot of us are chronically dealing with, and not just those of us that have children or young kids. I think that is, you're not getting restful sleep. You're constantly notified by every device under the sun, in your pocket, on your body, that there's something that you need to pay attention to. But going back to this patient bringing this to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the most important thing. So I can keep going if that's.
Well, I think the first question is, how do you start this? Mm-hmm. So you're saying that we should really, how do we allow our body cells to know if it's light or dark?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's something called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is a region of the brain. It's located in the hypothalamus, and this is the master clock of your body. It coordinates everything else in your system. So the liver, the gut, the skin, your hormones, reproductive organs, and this plays a lot into fertility or infertility, potentially. Everything runs on this, and how you transition or how you stimulate this suprachiasmatic, or SCN, I'll call it. It is through melanopsin receptors in your eyeballs. So so that's where you start. So how light impacts this is light enters the eyes, and it's specifically detected by these melanopsin receptors at that location. These aren't directly involved in vision, but they are solely dedicated to detecting light, and especially blue wavelengths, which I'm totally against, like super like outside blue light, artificial as it were. But you do have all spectrums of light in your light environment outdoors from a natural perspective. So what that blue light does from a pathogenic perspective, in my opinion, is from our devices and computers, it stimulates that melanopsin. And how many of us sit on our phones, watch TV? I don't know. We had to buy a new washing machine, and it's blue light panel. Like, you get a new refrigerator, you have the option for an LCD screen. Your car has these blue light, and it's just constant all the time. So that is what I think is giving this disrupted signal. But it's triggered in a more balanced direction from the light in the outside. And that's what your SCN uses, is those light cues to really determine what time of day it is, and then tells your cells from there how to orchestrate your internal clocks. So based on that, it sends timing signals to the pineal gland. This suppresses melatonin during the day, and it increases cortisol. Good for the morning. Cortisol is not a villain. You want it to be diurnal, meaning rise in the morning, decrease in the afternoon and evening, and it's opposite melatonin. So those kind of just trade spaces. But unfortunately, when we're using all of our computers, constantly assaulting ourselves with blue light that's artificial at the wrong times, it actually stimulates cortisol, suppresses melatonin, because your body artificially thinks that it's daytime.
Ding, 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 ding. High cortisol all the time.
Yeah.
Stress.
Well, exactly. And so the adrenals then communicate with other organs, and then you get this like chronic dysfunctional state. And how that plays into this idea of leptin, which is where I got into this initially. So leptin is actually secreted by fat cells. It tells your brain how much energy is stored and whether to burn fat or eat more. So it's the satiety hormone. So when you're thinking about, this weight loss or maybe mood imbalances, I know a lot of women specifically after having kids are like, I want to lose all this weight. Well, you're doing all of these things that are potentially more stressful. You're exercising more, you're getting up early. And that was me with my kid. Like, I would get up at 4:30, try to get all this stuff done. I'm like, oh my God, this is too stressful. So when I looked at some of my labs, I was like, well, this is a problem. Like I'm doing all the supposed right things and things don't look right. And so I switched everything I had been doing and changed that. So I don't necessarily work out first thing in the morning. If I do, it's in the afternoon. I go for a walk. You look at the sunrise. That's actually imperative. And that signal is what stimulates leptin, or improves leptin resistance, so to speak. And leptin resistance actually precedes something called insulin resistance, which is where you get diabetes.
Okay, this episode's going to be about 2 hours long, everybody.
Go into this.
Buckle
oh my
up.
gosh, I love it.
So, well, I don't know if we'll have time, but I am making a class on this that'll be like available on our website. People can purchase it and then kind of go at their own pace, review all this information. So it's not like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. But when I read this stuff, I'm like, what the heck? Like I haven't heard this in school ever. I mean, and it's a relatively new discovery. I think leptin was actually found, I can't remember where, but it was 1994. So as far as like it's a peptide hormone. So as far as hormones are concerned, it's relatively new in this world. So we're not really sure. Yeah.
Well, I do have a question on something that you just said, though. You said ideally we should be getting outside at sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
So is that step one? You want your cells to be able to see the sunlight when it's rising.
Absolutely.
How long? What if it's cloudy?
Still doesn't matter. Get outside.
What if you're planning to sleep in till 8 and the sun rises at 6?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to happen. But I think that those light cues, I for sure can tell a difference personally. And I've noticed a change in my blood work and labs and things, because seemingly I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing all the right things. I'm eating well. I'm exercising. I feel like I was managing my stress, but my signals I was getting my body by waking up early to a loud alarm. I always thought my normal wake up time was like 4:35. And now that I have let myself kind of just sleep in, I notice it's matching the outside now. So I usually wake up before my alarm, but it's around that time that the sun's coming up, which is amazing.
What about as the seasons change? Because here in Wisconsin,
Yeah.
In the wintertime, it is light at 7 and dark at 4:30. And in the summertime, you could be rising at 5.
Absolutely.
And then it doesn't set until 9. So tell us about that.
So that's a challenging piece at this latitude because one of the biggest concerns with the lack of sun in the winter is not synthesizing vitamin D.
Yes.
So a way to combat that, and people are going to not like this idea, but is to be cold. Cold exposure in the winter.
I've heard this and I don't like it.
I know nobody likes it.
Cold exposure in the winter.
Yes, because it actually stimulates brown fat, which is the healthy kind of fat. Your body internally creates light, which is amazing. This could be super long.
Okay.
So what that does by stimulating the cold thermogenesis, you actually improve your body's ability to make its own internal light, which is awesome.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. I have so many questions just on like the last 1 minute of what you've said.
So the things, other strategies, because you can't even make vitamin D. So other strategies we have, which we have at the office, we do have a vitamin D panel, which takes about 5 minutes. The coolest part is to get your abdomen exposed because there's improvements in GI diversity as far as the bugs are concerned. That's very cool.
Like expose your abdomen to light?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you're talking about like, I don't know, after having kids, some people aren't comfortable like being out and showing skin. I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, I'm going to, wear my shorts and tank top.
Good for me.
Absolutely. It's like, and from a perspective of weight loss, you're sending the right signals to the right areas. The more skin you have exposed to sun, that actually improves like more because you have neuropsin receptors in your skin that does a similar communication hormonally, which is fascinating.
Okay, I do want to circle back to the comment you made about being cold in the winter is actually beneficial because I feel like I am always freezing in the winter. So I should just embrace the freeze, or I should be doing cold plunges, or I should go outside in some shorts for
all of
2
the
minutes.
above would be appropriate. If somebody is like super cold averse, meaning they haven't built up a, so to speak, callus or a tolerance, just start with cold water on your face, like in the morning. Either you could do just straight tap water that's pretty chilly and splash that on your face. But there is more benefit to submersion in a sense because your body is not, if you tried cold showers, I can't stand it. It's just not my thing. But if you do like a plunge, even just like start with your feet, like do it in your tub. You could, there's lots of devices out there. You could spend a lot of money, but you don't have to. You could just do cold bath water. I mean, get yourself worked up to that tolerance.
Yeah, it takes a bit. Yeah.
But certainly like going outside in the cooler temperatures, absolutely. Ideally, you're looking to get to that shiver point. Plus,
For how long?
I'd say a couple minutes would probably be plenty. But again, see how you feel. Like if this is complete torture, don't torture yourself. Like get to work up to it. But my husband, I thought, was absolutely nuts. Like about 10 years ago when he started doing ice baths in our backyard. And I'm like, you are nuts. I'm not participating. And now I'm reading this and like, you're right.
Oh, I know.
So that's, interesting. But he's been doing this for years. And we use a chest freezer. There's ways to do that where you don't have to spend $40,000 on an ice tub. You can make one, or you can just get a bucket, like a big, I don't know, they're
like a horse trough or
kind
like
of, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then you worry about like yucky things growing in there. So just keep it clean if you do that.
Okay.
But there's ways to do it that's not super expensive. But yes, getting outside, regardless of cloud cover, regardless of temperature, you still get brighter light as far as lux is concerned outside than you ever get from an indoor environment.
Because that was going to be one of my questions is if people, especially in the summertime, you like to have blackout shades when you're going to bed if you have to go to bed before the sun actually goes down.
Yep.
But then if you are sleeping past sunrise, those would block the light, but you'd probably rather have those open so that you're getting the natural light coming in.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask is if you are inside working in an office or sleeping in your bed and you have sunlight coming onto you, is that still beneficial?
Somewhat. Unfortunately, if your windows were built or your house was built and your windows are after 1992, they are going to have a UV blocking film or some kind of component where you will get some through that, but it's not enough to really be super effective in that way. So outside is best. Speaking, you kind of triggered a thought here as far as like we do absolutely use blackout curtains. We keep our bedrooms as dark as possible. Interesting, any light exposure at night, if it could be from like a indicator light on a charger, a TV in the bedroom, which is not a good idea, or just outside, light pollution from your street signs or whatever, that actually can increase fasting glucose in the morning. So you want to keep things as dark as possible. And sleeping with like devices such as like Apple Watches or sleep trackers, Whoop bands, Oura Rings, I highly recommend against that because those are going to be disrupting light on your skin. That's exactly what that's doing. So all those tracking devices, I have done some research, and this is on my Instagram, which I'm like just blown away by just how they're not studied. They actually are non-native EMFs that are harming your metabolic health.
EMFs, that's another topic.
I know we could go on that for a while.
So let's shift slightly into red light because red light is a good thing. Everybody's talking about using red light devices. Is this giving us similar exposure to, is it similar to sun rays or is this totally different?
No, there are going to be, so the benefit to being outside is you get all of the light spectrums together. You're never just getting one in isolation. When you're using it for a therapeutic reason, using red light absolutely is. We have a panel. Soleil Well is who I typically recommend because she tests all her panels for flicker, which flicker from these panels will activate your flight response and actually make you more stressed out. So I try not to use ones that potentially do that. And she's actually tested for what her panels are emitting as far as light frequencies. So
and we'll link to those in the show notes.
Yeah, so hers are probably the best. Mito Red is also, I've not personally used that one, but I know that's also a pretty good name. But Soleil Well is probably my favorite. She's got a lot of really good products. They are at a price point, but as far as what's available, I think they are very reasonable for what you get. As far as like benefits from that, I mean, we use light therapy a lot. That's one thing I didn't really mention in the Lyme episode is we do have something called a Weber light device, which is a topical laser system, but we use it intravenously. So it's an IV light treatment, which is really cool.
Interesting.
So we have red, which is very anti-inflammatory. It also helps with pain control. You can see the improvements in red blood cell. So meaning like when they stick together because of illness, when you treat them with red light, they actually separate and flow through the system a lot better, which is very, very cool. But those were the big ones, I think, for red light. I mean, it stimulates the immune function in a positive way, decreases pain. It can be anti-aging for skin. That's probably my reason for meditating in front of it every morning is more for the collagen synthesis and those types of things. But the best case scenario is outside, especially as much as you can, but there are times I'm not going to pretend I go outside when it's 20 below, maybe to get in my car, but that's about it.
How long ideally are you outside taking in that natural light? So if somebody wants to add this into their morning routine, is this like 15 minutes? Is this 3 minutes is beneficial?
I will take whatever they can give. Okay. So if they walk outside for 60 seconds, it's better than not going outside at all. So I think some is better than none. Ideally, if they can do a walk outside or, stand outside, grounding barefoot is great.
Grounding, huge. Stack those habits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things, right?
Even just 60 seconds is perfectly acceptable. Start there and see how you feel and keep going with that. The other important aspect in the morning is trying to get up when UVA rises. And usually at this time, that's going to change by the time this comes out, is around 7. So you want to get out with, ideally 10 to 15 minutes in the morning, but I'll take whatever people can give. And then once UVA rise happens, you want to be outside around 10 minutes as well. So
compared to sunrise, when does that happen?
Typically about an hour later.
Okay.
Somewhere in that ballpark. So there's an app that we also, I have an affiliation with. It's called my Circadian app. So this is something that I use. This is like the only app on my phone that I allow to send me notifications. But what it does is it tells you like it's daybreak. So near infrared and red light are abundant. That's when you can be out. And then it tells you this is the time of sunrise, and it changes every day. So It'll notify you of that. So that's kind of how I time my walks in the morning, or when I get up is like, oh, it's 5:58 today. So I better get outside or whichever. Then it tells you when a UVA rise, when solar noon happens, that's going to be the brightest light typically of the day. Bonus points if you can get outside and eat your lunch. That actually improves anytime you can eat outside, your metabolic activity improves, especially when you're eating meals, like less problems with that, less glucose spikes, less insulin resistance if you're eating in an outside environment, which I'm like, that is so simple. I worked at the office this will be my 6th year. And just since I've been reading this research, I've made it absolutely a point. If it's nice enough, I'll go sit in the back of the office outside on the run an airport runaway. So
I used to work in an office setting too. And I've always said like, we should have our like welcome desks outside.
Yes.
Like obviously that's not going to work most of the time, or just like it's required to go outside, it should be more of a thing.
Yes.
Everybody should be doing it.
In my dream world, when eventually, if I build an office that's separate from where we are, I want to have the open, like either the accordion doors or garage doors. So like our actual clinic office rooms can be open.
Oh, I love
And there can
that.
be a patio outside where you could, so even, I'll get this question a lot. People are like, oh, I work on computers all day. I work in an office. What can I do? I'm like, if you work remotely, if you can even modify your, workspace to take it outside for even a couple of minutes every couple hours, awesome. If you can open a window. So again, ideally being by a bright window is great, but being outside is best. The next best thing is going to be opening that. So you allow some of that light to kind of filter in from an open window. So this is also another fun trick. This is called a daylight computer. So it's completely blue light and flicker free. So there's no blue light emitted from this. It's a new company. We're
going to include that link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Too.
So I do have an affiliation with them as well. I can give you that info, but it's the one. So our kid does not watch a whole lot of television, but if there's a long car trip or with a couple times we've been on planes, I just know the damage that can do to a young brain. And reading this data, I'm like, no way, I'm not giving her an iPad, but I feel so okay with this. So that's what I allow her to watch. Like if we're in the car, like in a long trip, we'll do that.
So before we get to blue light, because I have quite a few questions on that.
Yeah.
How much natural light is too much? So like, what is your philosophy on sunscreen?
Oh yeah. If you can get away without it, great. But if we're coming from Wisconsin, so if you're going to Mexico, you're not going to have that solar callus built up to manage that. So there are some safer options, but that is going to block those beneficial rays that you want. So strategies are trying to get built up to that so you don't need it as much. But yeah, you're going to probably need to use it for some, your kid's not going to sit in the shade. Like if they're swimming.
Something.
Do you have a certain type that you like? Whether
sunscreen?
Whether it's a brand or even just the ingredients to be looking for?
Yeah. So the brands that I like, especially for face, There's some we carry that have some tint in it. So for summer, I'll use that. It's Agent Nature. She also has just a plain one, which if you don't want the tint in that, we use one Rocasa. I think there's Badger Baby is another one I've used. So those you're really looking, unfortunately, for that like physical barrier as opposed to the chemical barrier.
Oh, so like, yeah.
You're going to look a little
You're going to look
tinged.
a little white.
Yeah.
Tinged, sure.
Ghostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a tough topic to really like counsel on, because not everybody, even in the summer here, is going to have that tolerance built up to the sun to be able to just go outside without sunscreen.
Okay.
So,
and then to transition from what we've already talked about into blue light, one more question I have more on the red light side is, you said outside you get all spectrums.
Yes.
Then you have red light, which is good and therapeutic. You have blue light, which is artificial.
You can have artificial.
Yes. And is damaging. Science-wise, why are the two lights different? What's happening in our body that makes one good and one...
Well, they're different frequencies, so they're acting on different areas, or they're just different. Blue light inherently is not bad. It is the artificial light at the wrong time.
Okay.
So obviously I'm wearing my like blue light blocking glasses. I usually wear these indoors, I don't need it for this computer, but on screens at work I typically do. They're just acting. They're very, when you're asking about studies, there's very little done on this because we're not controlling the light environment at all in any of the research we're doing, especially as it impacts potentially fertility and hormone health. Interesting, this is kind of an aside too, but kiddos, when they put fluorescent bulbs into classrooms, all became ADHD.
Oh.
There's a video on this. It's wild. This was a long time ago. I want to say like 1970. And there's a video you can watch about this. And I'm like, why aren't we optimizing the light in the schools? Like, why are we putting...
these are things that can get changed
easily. Yeah.
What type of bulbs should we be using?
Well, and ideally incandescent, but those are hard to get right now. If you have speaking to indoor light environments, you can purchase, there are some suppliers that do make what they consider flicker-free bulbs that are having a warm tone. Those are better. So it's not always about like, you want it bright during the morning and follow the cues from outside and make it dimmer at night. So if you have dimmer switches in your house, keep them low. We use a lot of rock salt lamps in our house. My husband likes to turn on the bright lights to see stuff, but I'm like, no, it's nighttime.
Stop it. Yeah.
Like, what else do I put my when the sun sets, I put my glasses on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we like to we have red or blue light blocking glasses after the sun sets. And I try to do it as much as possible, but then we do have like red light, like literally red light bulbs. Yep. Not like special bulbs.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Just you get it from Walmart. Just red bulbs that we put in our lamps.
Yes. Perfect.
In our bedrooms.
Yeah.
Because that's, we only go in there pretty much at night anyway.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do for our
perfect.
kids too.
Yes.
So
and that is a question.
That makes a huge difference.
With red light, that now that you say that, is getting something from Walmart, is that as good of quality as, like, are there different types of light quality?
Yeah, of course. But I would argue that if you can get them reasonably accessibly, do that.
Yeah, and the reason why we do that, it's just a red light bulb. It's not like a red light medical device therapy. Yep. It's to tone down all that blue light. Like, it just helps your brain just kind of settle.
Stimulating those melanopsin receptors that are spiking your cortisol.
Right. So you can still see, but it's just in the... I always joke, like, if people are looking in our bedroom window and it's like, what's going on
in Halloween house? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's transition to blue light a little bit more and talking specifically about it. So you just talked about, you have a computer here that is a screen, but it doesn't emit the blue light.
Does not.
What about like Kindles? I know there's some Kindles that say that they're I don't know what their
blue
marketing
light,
is.
Yeah. Or minimal blue light, but they will still have flicker. So if you've ever recorded on your phone, do you know what I'm talking about? Like, you see like that line that kind of goes up and down or like scrolls through the screen. That's flicker, and that's in your incandescent or your LED bulbs as well. So those are going to be constantly telling your eyeballs that this is a problem. There's flight or flight, and you need to stay on high alert. So that's the problem with a lot of these devices, especially with children, that it's stimulating their nervous system in a bad way. I absolutely still have a Kindle, but I use this now to read, at night because of the lack of flicker and that it's completely blue light free. So I don't need to block any blue light I don't need to wear the glasses when I read on this. But yes, you're going to have a level of flicker and blue light, I believe, to most of those devices, unless they've come out with something new. I guess I haven't looked into it. So there might be one.
Is it best to block artificial blue light, so phones, computers, all the time? Or like midday, is it fine and you really just want to avoid it at night?
I would say some level of diminishing that brightness is probably a good choice. I do personally, I've noticed when I've worn blue blockers for a decade, and typically it was the clear lenses. When I switched to the colored yellow during the day and then switched to red at night, it was like an immediate change within maybe a week. I would read on my book or on my Kindle or whichever, or a regular book for 2 hours sometimes. This has been a habitual problem. And my husband would fall asleep in a minute, and I'm like sitting here like, oh gosh, I'm going to read for another couple hours. And now I hardly read at all. I mean, maybe a page, and I'm completely out because of these strategic interventions. And that's especially you're focused on kids, like very important for children to get them outside as much as possible, and try to diminish their exposure to these artificial light signals at night that tells their body that it's they.
Does it, speaking of kids and light too, I mean, especially with like TVs and things like that, I notice for my kids, and I call it when they watch too much TV, you're rotting your brain. And there might be more to this too, but like with that flicker, with the blue light, if they're not wearing glasses themselves or whatever, does that contribute to behavioral issues?
Yes,
because
I
I've
do
noticed that they just are on the edge or whatever afterwards if they watch just too much.
Yeah, kids are incredibly sensitive to light, and their development really depends on these circadian signals. So if they're getting these artificial things, I believe that under 2, you probably shouldn't be on screens at all. I mean, there are circumstances that we have done that too. I mean, it's a tool, but not something to probably be used consistently every day. Getting them outside in the morning is really, really helpful. Helps with energy, attention. Again, when we're talking about hormonal health, like think about that. Like the onset of puberty is much earlier. How much are we disrupting that? Not only with chemicals, nutritionally, but potentially with our light signals. Like if that can mess up fertility, potentially, how does that change puberty? I don't know. These are things that are studied, so I'm just very curious. So at least an hour before bed for kids, dim the lights, try not to use screens, read books. We have a rock lamp. We've always had a rock lamp in our daughter's room. We have those like candles, the remote control battery ones.
Sure.
They actually emit less light than the rock lamps. So we will turn those on too. But I think that really will help with their emotional regulation, sticking to a bedtime routine, like reading books, those types of things. And I realize that this is not going to happen every night. Things come up. But as a general rule, like that routine, I think is important.
Well, and I think it's so important too, because as a general rule, it would be beneficial for everybody at least an hour before bedtime to just start winding down anyway. I've noticed when I do that, like whether it's just reading or having the lights dim or just, calm things, I can fall asleep faster. I have better sleep all night. And if you do that more consistently, you're going to see a huge difference.
I've noticed with our patient population suggesting these interventions, the red or orange tinted glasses, turning on there's a way, if you can just Google this, to make your screen filter on your iPhone or your Android red. So there's a way to change that in the evenings so you're not emitting. It's not perfect. But those interventions I think are extremely powerful, but you just have to do them. And sometimes they forget, I will have follow-ups and be like, oh, did you get your blue light glasses? Like, well, yeah, but I haven't worn them yet. I'm like, okay. So it's just sometimes one more thing to do. But I think those, just trying to get into the routine.
Yeah.
The red light, the red tinted glasses or orange blocking the blue and the green light, usually about in the winter, I'd say 3 hours before bed, but like ideal. I mean, I go to bed very early, like 9 o'clock.
That's what we do too.
So,
we try.
I'm probably putting mine on as soon as the sun goes down, ish, 7:30.
Okay.
Lately, yeah.
Well, and then circling back to circadian biology and kind of finish out this episode, let's talk some like real life things here. There are, like you said, when you were younger, shift workers, but even more so for the population listening to this podcast, parents who are up multiple times a night with kids. And so you can do your best to follow the circadian rhythm and the light patterns. And like we talked about, in the summertime, it's going to look different than winter. But what are some other general tips that you have for sleep when someone is struggling with that alone?
Oh, gosh. So the biggest thing, like we just discussed, was the glasses, but you're not going to do that with an infant. But those strategic things, just foundationally getting outside first thing in the morning, sunrise, if you can. I know that's a hard ask for somebody with a child that's very young. Sometimes you just can't. But even just stepping outside your house would be really helpful. I think that limiting your exposure to blue light as much as possible, sun breaks. That's something I've kind of termed I'm doing at my own job, because I could absolutely, I love to work. I love to read. I could sit in my office all day, every day. But trying to strategically even take your kiddo outside, even the small ones, like that helps to kind of keep them in that bright light. Because if they're indoors all day as a little person, they don't get to tell, 2-year-olds can say, I want to go outside, but a 2-month-old can't tell you that. But they do still also need those signals. So I think that will help with regulation. In the evenings, especially like when you get up, if they're nursing or feeding or, trying to calm them down, please don't turn on all the lights. Do something like what you're doing with either a red light, night light, or a rock lamp, or something that you can dim. So you're not, turning the lights completely on, and that's going to stimulate again your brain to think it's daytime.
Or getting your phone out and reading 100%. Something if you're nursing or something like that.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So, if you can read either. If you have a Kindle that's paper, it's still better than turning on all the lights or being on your phone. If you do have to be on your phone, I was guilty of this too. Try to put it on the red screen, so that at least there's that less likely that's going to stimulate your brain to think it's...
Wear your glasses too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just things like I have several pair that I keep at various locations in the house, just because it's like, I have to go upstairs and grab them, and I forgot.
That's so funny. I think the same thing. I just thought the other day I need to buy more because it's upstairs. I'm down here.
Yeah. Yep, funny. Exactly. Yeah. So those are the big things. That's a season of life that I'm still trying to figure out other strategies to suggest, because that's not modifiable in a way, especially in a very, very young kiddo. So,
well, this was a very eye-opening episode, and we definitely could continue for another hour, but we're going to wrap this one up. But we do have one other episode coming up with Evey. We're going to be talking about homeopathy in our last episode together. Again, one more time for those who just tuned into this episode, what is the best way for them to follow you? It's probably Instagram when it comes to this topic.
Correct.
Right?
So Instagram, The Fusion FNP is my Instagram. That's where you can find me most days. So that I post a lot about this is just like a big passion, because I think it is such a foundational aspect of health and wellness.
Well, and I feel like it's fairly easy to implement.
Guess what? It's free, most of it.
And it's free, or fairly cheap too, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's not a supplement.
We can't wait to hear more about this course you have coming out on this topic.
I know. I'm so excited. So,
yep, it'll be great. All right. We have one more episode coming up soon. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review, or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.